All right, hey guys, my name is Jason Renell. I'm a headshot photographer here in Philadelphia. And I have my good friend Francesca Ragucci here from Francesca Ragucci Marketing, and we're gonna do a little headshot critique video. It's my first time doing one of these, at least in video format online, but I wanted to bring Francesca in on this because she is a photographer, yet she does a totally different genre of photography, but she also does a lot of marketing too. So Francesca, give me a little bit of your background. Tell me about yourself. For people
Hi,
that don't know, I
Jason.
mean, I know you, so.
Yes. Thanks for having me here today. I'm so excited to be here. I'm the owner of Francesca Ragucci Marketing, and we help executives and independent business owners redefine their reputation on social media by managing and strategizing their online presence.
Awesome. So by you having a little bit like, a different bailiwick than I do, I really want to have a different kind of opinion. So that's a big reason why I brought you on, because I know you'll have a different opinion than me on some of these. And to have a non-headshot photographer perspective is something I hugely value, because I'm not marketing other headshot photographers. I'm marketing to people like yourself in some cases where you see a lot of this online. You do a lot of online marketing. So you're seeing probably as many headshots of people as I am, even though I do this for a living. So your opinion is absolutely valuable in this case, and that's why I brought you on. All right, so I picked 10 images from around the interwebs. And some of them I felt were strong cases, some of I felt were less than strong, but we're just going to kind of go through them and critique them one by one. And just a couple ground rules on this, like when critiquing headshots, look, we're going to poke some fun at these in the way that they look, but it's not meant to be mean-spirited. We're not judging the person or their character. We're absolutely not judging how good of a worker they are. We're not going to trash the photographer. Look, we can keep this fun and lighthearted, but we just don't want to be absolutely mean-spirited about it. So the goal of this is to learn and to show anyone watching this video that may be considering a headshot, or whether they do it themselves with an iPhone or whatever it is that whether they hire somebody like me, just some things to look out for. So the goal is to learn here and maybe have a little bit of fun in the process, but we're not here to outright trash the person. All right, so are you ready for the first image, Francesca?
Let's do this.
Let me do my screen share here.
Okay.
Bring this up. All right, so can you see that?
Yes, I'm able to see the man, the first picture.
All right, so I'll have you go first. You give me your thoughts.
I'll go for it. Okay, picture number one. So the story behind this picture tells me that this man just came back from the beach. He was on the beach for a long day because of all that redness in his skin. He looks a bit washed out. And it looks like he's at a restaurant or some type of nighttime environment because it's so dark. And one of his friends just grabbed the camera, put the flash on and says, "Take a picture. Here you go, nice smile." And he popped it up as a headshot. So it just looks like one of those on the spot beach tan at a restaurant. Not an ideal headshot, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a great shot to take to commemorate occasion, like you're out with your friends at a restaurant or at a beach or something like that. But I think like where you take that and decide to put this up as a headshot, I don't know, man, it's not really working. And this was a shot that I had pulled off like a website. This is not the shot I would put up as a headshot on your website. Facebook profile picture, maybe, because Facebook's kind of more fun and it's not all business and stuff, but for a LinkedIn profile picture or on your website, absolutely not. The problem here is that people are probably going to remember this gentleman as like the guy at the beach bar, sunburn guy.
He's memorable to me just because of this picture.
Yeah, so he's going to be memorable, but it's not going to be for the reasons that he would want probably, which is how he treats his clients, how he interfaces with his business partners, how he does business. Is he trustworthy? But I mean,
it looks like he's having a fun night out at business. I have to say,
looks like absolutely,
he may be a fun guy to have dinner with.
Yeah, I think that
for business.
The plus on this is that, if there's a plus, it's that he looks like a warm and friendly guy, and people always want to do business with people that they like. So if he just would have gotten a couple steps closer to a professional headshot and maybe emoted some of this kind of warmth and friendliness, he would be in a much better place than this. This, unfortunately, because it's just completely like amateur done, it's like showing up to a job interview in like ripped jeans or something. It's kind of just like, I don't care, you know.
I also have to add in one more point. Sometimes with headshots is we want on social media and online marketing, we want headshots to be up to date. We want it to look like they were taken this year or potentially last year. And I have to say, if this is a current person's headshot, it looks like it was taken in 2005. It looks like it was taken in the early O's. And having that presence of here's a headshot from 2010, even 5 years ago, is not a good example of the way you look and act today.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's, even though it wasn't even taken professionally, I think you can still see the date on it in a sense, right? When you start seeing stuff that's like probably from the early 2000s, you know? So I agree. All right, so you're ready to move on to the next shot here?
Yes.
Let's bring the screen back up. All right, so we are on to person number 2.
All right. I like her presence, and I will say her presence being, she has a nice smile, she has nice eyes, she looks very relaxed and calm. And her dress is very, business appropriate. I want to meet this woman because she looks really nice to talk to. However, I will say again, with the dated look of the headshot, it looks like a 90s headshot with the backsplash being, pastel-y or painted of sorts.
Right.
And it's really dark. It's got to pop a little bit more. In her face, she's got a lot of shadows going on.
Yeah, I think that you were so right about the other parts of this, which was she's professionally dressed. She looks lovely. I mean, she's such a pretty girl.
Exactly.
She's definitely looks like a warm person, somebody that you would want to do business with. I'm not getting any kind of bad vibes from her at all. But I think aesthetically, this shot is suffering. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know if this is, I'm going to guess it's professionally done in a sense because the light looks soft on her face, not to get too technical here with photography stuff.
Okay.
But the light looks soft on her face, but there's just too much shadowing. And so I'm losing the connectivity with her eyes, which are really dark, but her teeth are so bright. So it's like
That's true.
When I look at this shot, it's like I'm looking at the teeth, like Cheshire Cat. But I'm missing some of the connectivity in her eyes, which is what I really want to get at a lot of these headshots, and in headshots in general. So, and the shadow is just too dark too. So there's some really good things about this. And like you mentioned, she dressed the part. She looks completely professional,
Yeah.
I think the other gentleman was like in a night clubbing t-shirt or something like that. She's wearing business attire, but I just think there's some technical things here in this shot that just kind of do it in, and it doesn't make it anywhere near the best that it could be. I think if there was a bit different of a maybe photography aesthetic here, or light chosen, or gotten rid of the kind of model background stuff and maybe just brought a bit more up to date, I think she would have fared a lot better in this. So yeah, my consensus.
I'm almost trying to find her in the midst of the shadows because the shadows are so overpowering, especially in that one corner. It's completely pitch black.
Yeah, we're kind of losing her in the shadows, and the headshots we want it to be a promotion of her, and if she's competing with the background, that's definitely like not going to work. So yeah, completely agree with you.
Yes.
All right, so let's move on to the next image here.
Great.
Ooh.
Okay. So I have to say the photographer did a good job because it's on a really nice black background. It looks matte. It brings him out more in the forefront of the picture, and the lighting is nice and even. However, this man, I have to say, I feel cautious about this man because he's given me a bit of a side eye look. I'm just getting suspicious. So the last woman was very easygoing. She's someone I definitely walk up to at a networking event and chat with. And this individual, I'm wondering what his motivation is, especially with the cautious look.
Yeah, I feel like I want to say if this gentleman was applying for a job and that job was breaking other people's kneecaps, this would be a great headshot. But look,
Jason went there.
yeah, there's not, but look, in 9 times out of 10 in business, you're trying to put the most endearing image of yourself forward. And this is creeping me out,
Yeah.
I think that, but going back to what you said, which is absolutely right. I think aesthetically, I'm not hating the image really that much. I mean, you can tell he went to a professional photographer. The lighting is good. His eyes are clear. He's wearing business attire. He's not competing with the background. But what unfortunately really did him in here was the body language. The body language really killed us, and that facial expression. I just can't think of, I can't think of a less warm facial expression for somebody. It's like, because you want your headshot to be a promotion of you so that people will trust you and want to do business with you. And like you said, like, I don't trust this guy at all looking at him and stuff.
Right.
Let alone, I don't know what business is. I can't recall. But I'm not going to hire him to sell my house for me. I'm not going to he's not going to be my, if I'm looking down a list of LinkedIn profiles for a various discipline or line of business, like, he's not going to be the first guy I'm going to call because of this kind of really cold, demeanor. So I think that, aesthetically, the photographer did a good job, but I do think the photographer, unless he absolutely asked for this facial expression, and it's not that I've never had clients ask to be serious. There are some lawyer types that are, work on the trial side that want this very serious thing. So it can get asked for at times, but I do think unless the person like seriously needs to have a very serious headshot, the photographer should also kind of try to warm them up a bit too and work with them. So I don't know whose idea that was, but for most of the lines of business out there, I couldn't let a facial expression like this out of my studio. I just
one more nuance is, again, with the outdated headshots, I've seen so many, and this style where his shoulder almost looks like it's up higher than the other shoulder, and it's this interesting down angle. I've seen a lot of those styles in more the 2000s, even the earlier 2000s. So it's just making him look tense.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. I think that a lot of the overly posed headshots, they definitely come from that time period. Things are, I don't, there's lots of ways you can do headshots, and a lot of it's subjective. It's not always objective, but I think things tend to be more straight on these days, more simple, even though when we get in the studio here, it's not always simple for the person to do. That kind of leaning over and tilted approach is not, it's a little bit passe by today's standards and stuff. So I totally agree with that. The only other minor point I'll make on this gentleman is that, he's a larger kind of guy and he's carrying a little bit of weight. I would have positioned him differently so that he would have just lost maybe a little bit more of his chin there and got a little bit stronger of a jawline.
Okay.
So that's another technical thing that maybe the photographer should have paid mind to. But I think, before you even get to that point, it is the facial expression that's just doing this in. So, all right. So we are moving right along here. Let's move on to the next image.
Sure.
All right. Here's another one.
Okay. So I'm not loving the body language, I have to say. She looks like she was forced to be there. I can see it in her face. She wants to get out of that chair immediately. There are people who love being on camera and people who just don't for whatever reason, and she just doesn't. She goes in that category immediately. There's a lot of uncertainty in her face. Her head's cocked off to the side, very interestingly. She looks a bit slouched, so she needs some body language lessons from the photographer. I will say, too much jewelry, too much going on with the shirt. The simpler clothing, especially for women, is better. We tend to see men having that very basic look with clothes, but wardrobe, body language, backsplash, here we go again. We got that 2000s backsplash.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things working against this. So to put it in a positive, she did go to a professional photographer.
Yes,
I don't know.
right.
And
Good for
sometimes
her.
when somebody goes to a professional photographer, it's tough to tell who had a hand in what, right? Did the photographer tell her to
Exactly.
wear all this stuff and put her in
Right.
a position? And I'm guessing he probably chose the background, or maybe her business chose the background. I don't really know. So it's tough to, I guess, assign not responsibility or blame, but
Right,
who
right.
chose what elements of this image.
Exactly.
But I can say that I agree with you in that I don't like the background. But again, the killer for me, and the jewelry is very distracting, like you said. I think the patterns are a bit too much on the shirt. She could have gotten away with something far simpler that would have, you know, just brought more, not had any distractions around her face. But the thing is that the look on her face is so like, it's just so,
Yeah,
I don't want to be there, that I'm having a tough time getting past that. And
exactly.
it's like, I'm looking at her facial expression, and I guess what I would, if I'm looking at this and you can clearly tell she wants to get out of the room, if I'm looking to hire her for a job, like, and this is what she has like on her LinkedIn, I'm considering her for something like, is she going to make that face every time I ask her to do her TPS reports or something? Like, you know, is she going to make that face like, are you really going to ask me to do that again? Because that's what I'm getting out of this facial expression. It's like, are you
Yeah.
really going to ask me to do this? Do I really have to be here? So that kind of drives me nuts. Another subtle
And there
point
are
on,
personalities like that. Like, do I really have to do this? They're sort of the person who doesn't want to. And unfortunately, conveying that in a headshot is not good.
yeah, it's totally not good. And we're not saying that she's this person because we really don't know. She probably is a wonderful person to work with. She probably is an
Yeah,
absolute delight. She's
exactly.
really proficient at her job. But the problem is a lot of people are not going to get to that step because they're going to look at this when they look her up on LinkedIn after she's turned in a resume and be like, man, I'm never going to bring this person in. She looks miserable, you know? So it's a definite, I think it's a problem. It doesn't work in her favor at all. The other subtle point that I'll make here, you know, with that kind of head tilt to the back thing, this goes with that overly posed stuff back from like the 2000s, 90s or whatever. I don't like that head tilt back on the females. It just makes them look wishy-washy and not in
Yes.
command of like what they're doing, and not like of strong character, presence, and leadership. And that head back, I just hate that. I don't like it on guys either, but at females, it's especially just pushes them more in that kind of, you know, female territory where they don't look as strong as some of the males that they might be competing with in the
Sure.
workspace. But like you mentioned, the face is kind of doing her in on top of a lot of these other elements here. All right, so moving along again, let me share this screen and we'll move on to the next image again here.
Let's see.
Let's see what we've got.
This is fun. Oh, my favorite so far, I have to say. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This man looks great. He's nice and polished. He's got a great outfit on. His shirt stands out. His blazer stands out. His teeth, his eyes, all of his features stand out in a very complimentary way. The photographer did a great job. He did a great job. And like you said, we can't really assign roles on who did what, but this looks like a really nice collaboration between client and photographer. And that's really all I have to say.
Yeah, I think you're pretty right, spot on. I mean, I love this shot. This to me is an awesome headshot. I did not take this. This was taken up in Connecticut by a friend of mine, Kara Payuk, with face forward headshots. She did a phenomenal job. And so I guess one thing, all the stuff that you mentioned is absolutely true. The biggest thing though is that this guy is a bigger gentleman, kind of like we saw 2 headshots ago, like this gentleman here.
Okay, sure.
But look how endearing he is. And she also give him his jawline back. Like, he's not a small guy. He's a bigger character. He's got his jawline back, and the lighting's done such that it brings the focus up to his eyes and his face, so that the person looking at this can really connect with this guy in a positive way. Now, one anecdote on this thing, you know, I know Kara, and then when she told me the story about this gentleman here, you know, he came in and he said something like, oh, I don't smile, or I'm not comfortable smiling, or I'm not a smiler. But look at the job that she did working with him to kind of pull this out of him.
It's so natural.
It looks so natural, right? And so, you know, they had to work together on this. You know, you can't, it's it's the photographer and the client's job to kind of work together in a collaboration in a sense, but she did a great job goading him in that direction to pull this out of him, so that he looks like somebody like, yeah, I want to pick up the phone and call this guy and do business with him. I can't see any strikes here whatsoever. And like you mentioned, the background is simple. The clothes are simple. The garments are well fitting. You know, I'm attracted to the garments, but in a very good way. They're just a setup for that energy that he's giving the camera. So this has so many great elements to it. I mean, the lighting is so clear, great connection with the eyes. It's just well balanced on a lot of fronts. So this to me is a really good headshot that corrects some of the things that we saw in some of the earlier
Yes,
shots
absolutely.
in this series. So, you know, great job to the client here, and great job to Kara as well, obviously. Okay, so let's move on to the next shot here. Okay, pray tell me what you think on this one, Francesca.
Okay. So she showed up for a headshot by a photographer, so I will give her that credit. Congratulations. Outside of that, I feel scared looking at this picture. Because that's why it took me a minute to gather my thoughts, because I'm like, where do I start? The facial, it's very misleading. Again, I'm sure this woman is very lovely and wonderful to work with. It just looks like, yeah, she looks just scared. The background is way too bright too. It's almost overpowering her, even though I'm trying to focus on her face, but then the white is so white and she's wearing a white shirt. So I want to say with women's style is different than men's style, especially with headshots. And there are ways that women can show off their style by drawing it back a little bit and simplifying for a headshot. I like her jewelry though. Her jewelry is very simple. She has the hoops in, she has a nice necklace in. She's done it very well. I know, Jason, you advocate for hair and makeup with photo shoots. So I definitely commend her for doing a good job with that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the stuff you said is completely correct. Yeah, I always go back to the facial expression because I'm such a facial expression kind of guy.
Yes.
I mean, she looks like she's about to be abducted by aliens. I mean, that's not a great energy to have in your headshot. I think that, and the other things are competing with it too. Like you said, you know, I do a lot of white background work on my headshot, but it can't be so washed out because she's getting lost in that background. I mean, she did her hair. She's got great makeup. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that she brought a good garment. You're right. She kept the jewelry absolutely nice and simple if she's going to wear jewelry. You know, it's like there's a lot of things here, but for some reason, it just didn't translate to a great end product. And part of it, I think a big piece of it is because of that facial expression. It just looks so out to lunch.
Out to lunch. That's good.
Yeah, it's just not. I can't get the sense. I can't look at her and get the sense that she's going to be really engaged in whatever business we might be doing together. You know,
right?
The gentleman that we saw before, the headshot that I love, like, you know, I'm looking him in the eyes and like, I can see it in his eyes. He's going to do a great job and we're going to work really well together on whatever that business might be. With this woman, you know, there's a lot of great raw elements here, but without that facial expression, without being washed out, like I'm just not getting a sense of who she really is or what she does. She's kind of lost in this, you know.
I'm looking at her and I'm trying to make eye contact, like great headshots. It looks like the individual's looking right at me. It looks like she's looking past me.
Yeah. Yeah, she's absolutely looking past you. I mean, I don't know what she's like. Is she looking behind me? Like, she's looking past me.
There.
And it's like, that's not, even when you meet somebody in person, you know, when you meet somebody in person and you go to like, I mean, you've done lots of face-to-face network events, just like I had, you know, and there's like lots of different conversations in the room and stuff like that. And like, you kind of connect with eyes with somebody, but like, there's that odd occasion where like, you're like, are they looking at me? Are they looking somebody behind me? Like, I don't know. But if you're getting the sense of that in someone's headshot, that's completely not good. It should all be about that connection with the eyes, because the eyes and that connection with the eyes, that's really where you build trust. And when you have a conversation with somebody in person, you're not, these other things like the garments, the garments and the hair, like that is all set up for a headshot, but we always go right to somebody's eyes. And it's so important to have that connectivity with the eyes. And this one just does not have that, outside of the other aesthetic things that they've mentioned that are kind of, working against this shot. So I think it started out with a lot of good elements, but I think we agree it just kind of fell short for a couple of reasons. Yeah. All right. So we are moving on to the next one here. Yeah. Let's see. Okay.
Okay.
So what are we feeling about this one?
On location.
Yes.
So there are two headshots, as we know, on location and in studio. So it looks like the situation was maybe a headshot photographer was in for the day and they pulled everyone out of office and just grabbed them right quick in the hallway. I'm less a fan of that style because it just looks like a quick, it reminds me of picture day at school where they just pulled us out of class and took our pictures and it was awkward. And it looks awkward in this picture. This woman, her eyes are blue and she's wearing a blue shirt, which is great. Her body language looks slouched. And the strength of her presence, and like you said in the last couple of ones, is women in headshots and in business need to have a strong look, a leadership look, instead of a dainty or whimsy kind of look. And this look looks a little bit more passive than proactive.
Yeah, I could agree with a lot of that. I think that as a photographer, as a headshot photographer myself, I do go on location and do shots, but I'll bring my solid backdrop with me. That's just how I shoot, do environmental stuff like we see here. It's just not the style that I shoot. I feel like a lot of times the person can be competing with the background. But that aside, I think aesthetically, this photographer did a phenomenal job. If there's any kind of in non-studio kind of look where it's capturing like an environmental headshot, I think that he or she did a wonderful job. This pleases me a lot because the background's adding interest, but I don't feel like she's competing with it. I feel like it's nice and blurred in the background. I'm getting a sense of her environment, but I'm still drawn to her. I'm not really, with the exception, the only thing I would say is this door handle thing off to the side here.
Yeah, I'm competing with that.
Stuck with the blurred portion of the photograph, but that aside, the rest of the photograph, I think it doesn't compete with her at all. And I think her skin looks great. The lighting on her, the way the photographer balanced this with the ambient light in the room, they did a phenomenal job. I think it's aesthetically so nice. But I think going along with the body language, again, I go to the eyes and like some of the posturing, and I'm not getting a strong presence from her. So I can tell you that firsthand, when you go on location as a photographer, and you're kind of, you have shorter durations to work with people, and you really have to work a lot harder to pull compelling expressions out of people more quickly, so that they kind of don't have this kind of deer in headlights kind of vibe that we're getting from this woman here. I just feel that she looks nice, but it's just the kind of the blankness in the eyes. I would have loved to seen that someone work with her to try to, just get her looking a bit more credible, a little bit less deer in headlights. Because as a female, again, it's tough to have that credibility. And I'm just getting that sense that she looks a little bit more junior and wishy-washy here with that kind of wide-eyed open look. So it's challenging to do when you're on location. I know that. But I think this is, and maybe the case is, and I'll just say this, maybe this is a case where this is her natural face. Like I've had people come into my studio and they've had just very wide eyes naturally, and that's just how they kind of look in a lot of their images. But in the studio, I have the advantage of time, and this is exactly what we work on to kind of mitigate against that stuff and help these people work through it and correct it, so that they don't look like this. So maybe this was something that was too tough to work through. Maybe the other headshots that were done this day were complete aces as far as the body language and the, this kind of facial expression where you don't kind of get this wide-eyed kind of look, this not very confident look. So I don't know, but I would have loved to seen a little bit of working past that. And I think that and the body language really are the only two things, in the crossed arms, I'm not a big fan of either. Those are the only two bad things I have to say about this otherwise beautiful shot. I mean, it is beautiful, All right. So let's see. Let's move on to the next one here.
Okay.
All right. Here we go, Francesca.
Here we go. It's the 1980s.
I don't know what.
I'll give it to him. It's probably the 90s,
but I don't know what was taking. I mean, I don't know, but
I feel like I'm Back to the Future in that movie with this headshot. And it might be a picture from the 90s or something, and that's okay. It's so out of date. And I'm just comparing this to a modern day headshot. Just the way he's posed he's got to be posed masculine. He's a man, and the pose is a bit too much of his body. It looks like he has his hand on his hip. And I'm focusing on what's going on with the hands at the lower level of the picture, more than the upper level at his face. The facial feature, he looks like the shy guy at the office. He looks like the guy who's not talking too much.
Yeah.
So the facial expression could be stronger. And the assumption with men is not every man has the strong face. His face looks a little bit more shy. So that's what I have to say. I like the backdrop. I have to say it's really nice looking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this was taken recently, actually. So there's people still doing 1990s aesthetic or whatever it is, like with the weird posing and stuff like that. People are still doing that now, and I see it all the time. So it could be taken recently, but it is a dated approach.
Yes.
While it's done recently, it is a dated approach to doing headshots. So I think that website, I pulled this off. I think he is a leader in the company, but you would never get that sense of it from this here,
Right.
I just feel like looks like he's going to fall off a stool or something. And he's also, we're showing a lot of his body that we just don't need to see. A headshot doesn't really need to show a lot of your body down, like below where you see on my chest here. It should be just like from chest and above, and that's it. Because as you get to be older, and like, I don't know how old this gentleman is, but like, I don't think anybody wants to show off their midsection as they're approaching beyond, middle age and beyond, so
You're right.
That's light. Another thing is he's looking up at the camera, and when you look up at something and the camera's kind of shooting down on you like that, it just makes you look more junior and less serious and commanding.
Junior, yeah, like that.
Is playing a factor here, and not in his favor either. I feel like, I just feel like looking at the shot, there's a lot of things they could have done better. But I mean, look, the pluses are they did hire someone professionally to come in and do this.
There you go.
I'm not hating the lighting. I think it's a fair lighting job. I mean, it is, crisp and hip as cool as some of the things we see coming out now for commercial headshots? No, maybe not. But look, they got it professionally done. I just think what really fell short on this one was the body language and how he's positioned and all this stuff. That really killed it. Because even the suit's fine. I mean, he's got a relatively understated tie on, crisp shirt, the collar, the suit looks like it fits, but it's kind of crumpled looking because of the position that he's in. So, kind of is what it is with this one. Not a huge fan of it. I think they just could have done, either the photographer could have done a little bit better with the positioning and the body language, or a lot better, rather.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next one here.
Cool.
Okay.
So we have a woman here, and with this woman, with anyone, I recommend having a lengthy look to the body. Her body, it looks like I cropped this picture and gave it to you. The crop is awkward, I have to say that. And there's two brown poles in the background. So again, it looks like, hey, wear your best dress to office. It's picture day. Looks like one of those days they just pulled her out in the middle of her work. 1, 2, 3, take the picture. She looks approachable. She looks like a nice woman, but there's something about her where she just wants to get out of there. Is not as genuine as some of the other pictures we've seen, especially with her eyes and smiles, like, I'm just taking a picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to guess this was done on location somewhere, you know, in their place of business, whatever. And, you know, it's good to have like a blurred background, but even with that, like, this is where, like, you know, she's got that kind of brown pole sticking out of the back of her head, whatever. I don't know if it's a doorway or something. And there's this other one to the side here. So I think that's a little bit distracting and stuff. But it looks like you know, it looks kind of professionally lit. You know, I can see her face clearly. I can see her eyes clearly. You know, she looks like a really warm person and a good person to work with. But I think, you know, again, going back to the body language on some of the other females that we talked about, I just can't get past the kind of, that kind of head tilt back thing.
Yeah.
When you're trying to look like a leader in a company or somebody who's just like on their game and confident, you always want to lead, at least these days, like, you know, you want to have strong body language or headshot. You're definitely going to want to lean the other way and kind of lean in forward versus, I'm happy to be here, right? It's too wishy-washy. It's too submissive for a female. So again, a lot of good things about this headshot, but it's just, I think if a couple of those things were fixed up, and like you said, the crop this is a weird crop. If the crop was different too, that might have, and maybe they should have just, like, without that, they didn't have that pole in the background to know that the shot was vertical. They could have just kind of tilted her this way a little bit. And that might have fixed some of the posturing issues and that kind of head tilt back thing. But yeah, I mean, it's good. It's not great. I think it could be, you know, a bit stronger for her, especially if she's a leader, you know, in a company. So, okay. So let's move on to, I think this might be the last one. Let's see. Okay. This is the last one.
Perfect. I really like this picture. I like the way the photographer composes the picture. We have a white backdrop. Though it's white, but it's not overpowering this woman. This woman stands out really boldly. She's giving me this commanding, strong, feminine look because she's a woman. And it looks like her face is nice and dropped. So it's natural, great. I just love it. I love it. Everything, hair, makeup, wardrobe, body posture, smile, photographer's work. Great job. This is an excellent picture, similarly to the gentleman who we saw earlier.
Yeah, I think, so yeah, in full disclosure, I love this shot. I know the photographer that took it. It's Ian Johns up in Boston with Ian Johns Photography. This is phenomenal. And this is where so many pieces of, you know, the aesthetic is so simple. This looks very simple, but it's challenging to pull off to get this simple aesthetic, and to impart this kind of strong presence into an image for a client that comes into the studio. So just to go over some of the technicals, you're absolutely right. Like, we have the same white, like, it's a absolutely white, pure white background, but she's not falling into the background like the female that we saw a couple images before. So she's set off against the background. She stands out. The garment, like you mentioned, is simple, just like business attire. And there's nothing complex about it. There's no bright colors. She has two very subtle earrings on, and all that stuff is just the setup for what we're really capitalizing on here, and what you know, Ian capitalized on, which is that absolute compelling expression in her face. And this remedies so many of the things that we saw with the last shot. And I'm just going to go back to the other shot just very quickly. Look at the body language here, and just like, she's happy to be there, you know, kind of head tilt back, like, okay. But now you got someone like, I'm here. I love what I do. I'm going to do a great job for you as a client or as a business partner. I'm in the game. Like, she's so in the game in this. And I love that.
She looks like a great communicator.
Absolutely. And you can't deny that connectivity with the eyes. It looks like she's staring right across the desk from me and we're already doing business, or we're at a networking event and she's listening intently to exactly what I'm saying. And all of us are selfish in a sense. We want to be listened to. So when we come across somebody either in person or online and we feel like they're good listeners, we gravitate towards those people. So she's listening intently to what I might be saying. And that all comes from the eyes. The other piece of this that I love is that it's such a balance, because we could take the eyes, and if the mouth wasn't as friendly as it is, she would come off a little too cool for a female. And I'm sure, as you know, as a female, there's a much more narrow path that you have to kind of tread on between looking too mean in your headshots, or people think like, oh, she's the B word, versus looking too friendly and too submissive. So it's hard. I think this hits that middle road so good in that this didn't have to sacrifice any warmth for her as a person to get the credibility that I'm seeing in this headshot.
Yes. And I will say, like you said, it's the balance of strength in the woman's position. And it doesn't matter what her seniority level is at the business, but she's a woman in business, period. And this shows. It's just a great, strong picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. You did a great job. All right. So that is the last picture. I'll bring us back up on screen. So we went through different headshots here.
All right.
We had some fun doing
the journey.
We kind of been looking at headshots for a while. So we know some of the stuff. And since you and I know each other, you've kind of picked up stuff off of my spiels or whatever. But I hope other people watching this might have learned something too. Francesca, thank you so much for joining me on this. It's always a pleasure to do these collaborations with you.
Thank you, Jason. And I will say Jason photographed my headshot.
Yes, I would love to
have experience with Jason directly in the studio.
And I'd love to have you come back in at some point. Absolutely.
I will be.
Where can people find you, Francesca? Where's the best place to find you?
You can find me at francescaragucci.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening today.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Guys, if you love this video, drop a comment. Even if you hated this video, drop a comment and tell me what you didn't like about it. But guys, thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.